Here we go. Good morning, everybody. Good morning here from the Seattle area. I'm Tom Pendergast. I'm the Chief Learning Officer at Media Pro, and this gentleman to my right is, go ahead, Daniel.
Well, good afternoon from the East Coast. I'm Daniel Elliott. I'm Director of Education and Strategic Initiatives at the National Cybersecurity Alliance.
Yeah, and we were just talking in the green room and back. It didn't feel like a green room. It felt like the same room that I've sat in here for months and months. We were just talking about how interesting it is to try new ways to communicate with people during this pandemic. I think we're both probably inclined to look on the bright side, people. But this is an experiment to try a different way of communicating with our audience, such as that audience is, just like what we're going to talk about today, the National Cybersecurity Month presentations that we both did, I think was a novel way for a lot of the people that we worked with to try to communicate with their audience.
Yeah.
So Daniel, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for the invite.
Yeah. I mean, Daniel and I were last week. We're talking about maybe writing a joint blog post together about what we learned while we did Cybersecurity Awareness Month presentations. And then we were having such a good conversation that we said, there's no way we're going to ever capture this in blog post. Let's just see if we can have a conversation. So here we are. Thanks for joining us. And what we're going to do, no one's in charge here. We're going to have a conversation, but we decided that I would kind of ask the questions and Daniel would answer the questions, but I'm going to answer the questions too if they strike me as being interesting, and hopefully they are. So here's my little cheat sheet on that. So Daniel, start off by telling us what you did during Cybersecurity Awareness Month, because I know it's a big deal for the NCSA.
Yeah. Oh gosh. I mean, my role with the National Cybersecurity Alliance is really to manage our entire educational portfolio. And so, of course, that comes to a head with National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. And so, my role in particular, usually I'm traveling all over the country delivering presentations during Cybersecurity Awareness Month. And this year, of course, it was all virtual. But I actually got to do more and reach more people because it was all virtual. I used to be able to say, sorry, I'm traveling during that time. I never got up out of my chair, in October. And so I spent the whole month getting to talk to so many different audiences of, global corporations for their internal trainings and government entities. And of course, my sweet spot and my favorite audience to talk to small businesses. And I got to talk to a massive audience of small businesses and just evangelize cybersecurity as much as I can and best practices.
Did you keep track of how many of these you did?
So I did about 20 presentations. How many did you do?
Yeah, I think I did 14. I was saying 15, but then I went back and I looked back through my calendar and it was 14. And so for me, this is not something that I had done a bunch of. I've occasionally spoken to clients of ours and conferences, but we decided leading up to October that we knew our clients were going to be struggling to run Cybersecurity Awareness Month in the way they used to. So we offered, hey, if you want somebody to come speak to your employee population, I would do that. So yeah, same deal, 14 presentations. I kind of joked that I'd like to put myself on a map everywhere I was, but same deal. It was all sitting right here. I did every one of them from here. I did one at 5 a.m. For the EU.
Oh, wow.
I did one I did 3 for the same company. One was at 5 a.m, one was at 10 a.m, really nice time. And the other was at 7 p.m, for which my counterpart in Poland was awake and co-hosting at 4 a.m.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I joked that during that month that if you had woken me from a dead sleep and said, Tom, give the presentation, I felt like I could have done it. You
Yeah.
know, because I just had to be able to do it at the drop of a hat.
That's amazing. I always say I'm neither a morning person nor an evening person. So my sweet spot is really just the middle of the day.
Yeah.
So if you want me to give a great presentation early in the morning, let's pre-record it and I'll submit a pre-recorded session.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish I could say that. I'm afraid I'm like a freakishly early riser.
Wow. Okay.
I'm awake whether I like it or not about 4:30 every morning. So going live, talking to people at 5 was a challenge. I usually like to have at least 2 cups of coffee under my belt before I talk to anyone,
Yeah.
including my wife.
Okay.
Yeah, if she comes downstairs before I finish my second cup of coffee, I'm just like, no,
Yeah.
not yet. So how, like any big and interesting successes, and then we can talk about if there were any terrible ones.
Yeah, I think for the most part, all of them were successes. In that we were able to partner with great organizations who really tried who are passionate about delivering some good content to their employees or to their customers or to their local community.
Yeah.
Because most of mine weren't internal trainings for corporations. I did a few of those. Most of mine were kind of training groups of, talking to industry groups, which had many different types of organizations participating, or talking to communities and groups of small businesses from various industries and backgrounds. And so, I think as far as successes go, just the reach that we had during Cybersecurity Awareness Month this year, we increased the number of champions by 25% this year. And so people were eager to participate and to share resources. And I think part of it was the new branding with Cybersecurity Awareness Month.
Yeah, that was cool.
And part of it, and I had more, of course, talks than I usually do,
Right.
because of the nature of it being virtual. And that alone, I think, is a success. Just the demand for people wanting to hear different perspectives and get information and resources.
Yeah.
Hey, so I think, that was.
Let me pick up on one thing you said. You characterized what you were doing as training, which was interesting to me. Were some of the groups like this was going to count as their security awareness training, or is that just a broad term you're using?
So some of them did. Yeah. I think for the most part, you are astute to pick that up. I should have said awareness versus training. Some of them, though, were used for credit for specific requirements for either their federal agency or their state agency or industry. But the way I delivered it and the content itself is awareness.
Yeah. I had one of the companies that I worked with treated it as training, and thus they had people stay to the bitter end. There was like this awkward moment where I'd say any questions at the end, and if there weren't any, like I would typically say, okay, well, after 2 minutes of lacking questions, let's call it a day, folks. We'll get 10 minutes back. Well, we didn't do that. We kind of hung out and fished for questions. Yeah, so that was. It felt weird that it was being done as training, because I was really attacking it as an opportunity to really be enthusiastic about what being cyber smart could mean in your life. And I think just an attempt to really communicate how important it was to just be resilient as an individual in terms of how you interacted with the digital world, and to really just communicate some real positive energy around, cybersecurity is not this boring, scary. It's not this boring thing. It's also not necessarily this scary thing.
Right.
That you need to get all alarmed about. It's just a set of practices that you can deploy. And if you do, you're going to be a heck of a lot more confident as you kind of roam around through the digital woods.
And that's why, to that point, I always start my presentations with, why are we talking about this? Why am I talking about this specific topic, whatever it is? How does it relate to you as an audience? And so that they can understand that this topic that I'm about to talk about from the very beginning fits in their life in some way.
Yeah.
And so, so then everything that follows, they're like, okay, I see it now.
Yeah.
Hopefully, that's the goal.
Yeah. Hopefully. So we're already well off our script. That's cool. I figured we would go well off our script. So you didn't do any real events. You didn't do anything in person.
I didn't do a single in-person event. The majority of mine were either virtual live events or pre-recorded.
Mm-hmm.
The pre-recorded ones were kind of interesting because, and I don't know if you did any of these as well, but some of them I would pre-record ahead of time, and then they would release it at a designated time, but I would be in the conference, and while my presentation's being played, I'm in the chat feature answering questions. And I really liked that.
That's cool. I know the one you're talking about because I talked at this same group. Okay. We're not going to name names here.
Yeah, no, we won't name names. I did 2 of them like that, actually.
Yeah, okay.
That was great.
So I had the opportunity to do it that way, but I was so intrigued by this platform that I wanted to try using it live because I liked the polling features that were in there. And so that just reminds me, we're all going to be doing this virtual thing for a while longer. Who knows how much. I really wanted access to more features to make the virtual thing interactive. So when I had customers who had the ability to use interactivity, and it was polling is I was really delighted to have that. Were you able to do anything with that?
No, we did polling in a few different events, but not the one that you're talking about. I didn't explore any of that.
Yeah, I've got to think that as we do have to do more of this virtually, we're going to have to figure out ways to keep people involved.
Yes, more. And that's the true test here, right? Is we can't just rely upon webinars where someone delivers a PowerPoint presentation for an hour or 40 minutes. Like, sure, there are times when that might be appropriate, but we have to rethink because, this virtual learning, these virtual learning experiences, awareness experiences are going to be happening for quite a while now. So how can we take advantage of all the capabilities that these platforms offer?
Yeah.
And try to actually think about how we're delivering content and how people want to receive it.
Right.
And get them more involved. And so we tried to do, I tried to vary some of our delivery mechanisms. So when we did a small business focused event in October. And so I made all the presenters, and Lisa Plagmeyer on your team was one of them, deliver their content in 5 minutes with one slide.
Oh yeah, that's cool. I saw that.
Yeah, and so people loved that because they said, okay, I can learn about fishing in 5 minutes with just one slide. And it really forces the speakers to get to the point, right? Yeah. And deliver the best practices right there in those 5 minutes. And but I think we have to continue thinking about stuff like that and how we can just change up the way we're delivering some of this content.
Yeah, totally agree. And the other thing, I mean, one of the things I always reminded myself almost before I did every presentation is, Tom, people are sick to death of Zoom meetings and so on.
Yeah.
If you're flat and dull,
yes,
it's going to kill them. And that was like, if I could kick myself in the ass before every presentation, I would. But it was like, get your energy up.
Yeah.
If wave
Whether
your,
do some jumping jacks, something. But I completely agree, because it's harder. I think for me, it's harder to get my energy up with virtual events, because I don't have the crowd staring at me that's getting, all my emotions worked up and my energy up. I'm just staring at my screen, sitting in the same old room that I'm always sitting in. And so, yeah, you have to psych yourself up a little more.
Yeah, it's funny. My desk is one of these standing desks, so I can raise it up. And so on one of them, I raised it up, and I realized that I was grabbing my desk and rocking it. So okay, I can't do that. Standing up to do this may be too much, because I'm going to get too exuberant. How interesting. So go ahead.
Well, I was just going to add, one of the things that I was thinking about after some of my talks was that, people, because I tried to psych myself up and be intentional with my level of enthusiasm for the topic, I found a lot of people were surprised that I made it enjoyable to listen to, that I was enthusiastic about it. And it made me start to think, like, gosh, why are people surprised that this was an enjoyable experience to learn about cybersecurity, or to hear a presentation on cybersecurity? And I'm not saying others aren't, enjoyable to listen to, but it says something about the industry, right? When people are shocked, taken aback that they enjoyed the experience.
Well, I think you and I know a lot of the people working in this field. And probably the ones we know are the ones who are actually enthusiastic about and are able to convey that. Yeah. But we also know that there are a lot of people running cybersecurity awareness programs in their companies who they were assigned the task, and they're afraid of speaking in public, and maybe they have no passion for it. And man, when that's your driving force behind communicating about cybersecurity, no wonder people are bored to tears by it. And it's a shame. I think if I think of, I've been in this biz for 13 years now. One of the trends that I've definitely seen is more and more programs are being run by people who are enthusiastic and excited by it, who think it's really fascinating. But somehow we got to feed that in. I know you and I we wanted to talk about how you take some of the things that you learned during Security Awareness Month and then spread them throughout the year. And this was one of the big takeaways for me, is we can often get up for Security Awareness Month, right? We can do some fun things and make it seem a little bit more exciting. Yeah. But let's remember, this is a war. It's not a battle. We need to kind of get up for it all the time. Right. So, I mean, for me, one of the ways to get up for it, so just to overuse that term, is to get engaged with the interesting stories. To me, there are just so many interesting stories about people who either avoid getting, scammed, or they devise a means to manage their digital world in a way that makes them feel really secure. What are your thoughts there?
I mean, humans they naturally respond to stories, right? We still tell stories from thousands of years ago, right? So, clearly it's a mechanism that works for igniting interest and passion in humans. Yeah. And so, I think definitely taking the stories and or building more stories into how we deliver awareness is so important, and we have to do that. And those stories married with practical steps, right? People are hungry for, one, how does this fit in my life? Hence the stories. Yeah. And two, then what do I do with it? Yeah. The steps. And so I think if we marry those stories with actionable steps,
Yep.
And again, you're right. October is amazing. It's a great way to rally the troops and highlight new resources and best practices. Then that feeds us the rest of the year with all of our awareness efforts all year long. Because you're right, cybersecurity doesn't stop in October, nor does it stop at the border. This is a global issue. This is a year-round, 24/7 issue. And so I think, people were hungry for those stories and hungry for those steps they can actually take.
Yeah, totally agree. There was one like actual step that I found that I was really hitting hard on. I'll tell you mine, and then maybe you have one as well. But I felt like I was a password manager salesman, because I had this story about when I adopted a password manager, and I realized to my horror that I had 700 different credentials, and of course it took me some time to do that. But I'm a real believer in the password manager, and I was like, Tom, you're such a password manager evangelist. You think you're funded by LastPass or Dashlane or something. Was there any like one thing you kept advising?
Yeah, well, I kind of have to agree with you on password managers. That's because that's just, it's such a great resource for people. But I really, of course, focused on two-factor authentication. I think I mentioned two-factor authentication 15 times a day, at least every day throughout October. I mean, MFA, 2FA, I mean, that is just, I just tried to hammer that home as much as possible. And so I think, anybody who heard me speak more than once got the point that two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication is what they need to be doing.
That was definitely my number two. And then there was like this like much more amorphous skill, which I sometimes don't even know what to call it other than just a thoroughgoing skepticism. Like the stuff that comes into your email inbox, stuff that you see on Facebook or wherever you're looking. Take a moment to scrutinize whether it's real, and especially if you think you're going to act on it. Take some time. I mean, that's if I think of the Uber skill, not just here's a tool you can use, but here's a mental model you need to adopt. That's the other one that I was probably really hammering on.
Oh yeah, we're such trusting beings, right? Yeah. I mean, we could be in public. When I was traveling all the time, I would always see, and I know you've seen this too, people sitting in an airport with their work-issued laptop, a personal laptop. They ask the complete stranger sitting next to them at the airport gate, "Would you mind watching this while I go to the toilet?"
Yeah.
What? You don't know this person? And we hand strangers our phones at theme parks when we went to theme parks and say, "Hey, would you mind taking a photo of my family? Step 20 feet back." And why do we do this? But we're trusting people. And part of me hates to break that trust, right? And say, don't trust me. I'm not saying don't trust anyone. I'm just saying be skeptical. It's a hard thing to discuss.
Yeah. There's that, it's that essential human quality, and yet it leaves us so ill-suited to a world of strangers. And a digital world where it's so hard to tell what's what.
Yeah.
So,
on a positive note, did you, because you were all over the globe virtually, did you see any examples of like great cultures within organizations, great security cultures within organizations?
Yeah. I mean, I saw one that I'm still just kind of blown away by. And here's where I wish I could say their name and just celebrate what they're doing. But let me just tell you what I saw there. This big financial corporation really wanted to prep. So we did 2 different prep calls in advance. And in the course of doing that, I got to interact with multiple people. They, not only the awareness program person, but she had found some people in the communications department who wanted to make sure that when they did this live meeting, everything was going to be perfect. And so I could already in those prep calls kind of sense the level of collaboration and decency that was going on there. And then we got into the presentation itself. We had 2,992 people. This is my biggest at this presentation. That was almost a third of the entire employee population of this company. And this was a global company. So some people just weren't there because it was out of their time zone. And throughout, so the deputy CISO was there with me on the presentation, incredibly personable, pleasant communicator. And they were just laughing and joking. And there's a steady stream of comments coming in during the presentation, which they were handling.
Oh, nice.
So while I was talking, they were getting this steady stream of comments. And there's all this back and forth going. And I just thought, holy cow, here's a group of people that treat each other so decently, and here's a company where security is important, an optional security talk. It's important enough that you get 3,000 people there.
That's amazing.
They're all having a good time.
Wow.
I mean, we talk a lot in our profession about developing a security aware culture. I'd love to figure out how to bottle what they were doing there and then sell those bottles of water to everybody. Because wow, I would. And the wild thing was that was my last presentation.
That's a good way to end it.
It was great. I felt so awesome after that. Now, I don't think you do these damn virtual presentations, and you're just talking to a screen. It doesn't matter if there's 25 people, which is I think the smallest group I spoke to, or 3,000 people. It's no different. But that felt really good. That was cool.
That's cool. I wish I would have been able to feel out the culture like that a little more. I really didn't. I didn't get to experience that as much. I think partly because a lot of the very few of mine were actually with corporations and companies. Most of mine were to groups of different organizations.
Yeah, you guys have got a different kind of mandate and a different communication. Yeah.
But the 2 to 3 corporations and internal trainings that I did do, one thing that I was happy to accommodate was tying my talk to their mission as an organization. And that was refreshing. I think, for employees who are often asked to fulfill the mission of an organization and its values, to tie that to a cybersecurity discussion, I thought was really great and inspiring for me as a speaker to really make that connection.
Yeah. I agree. And I think we did a little prep because I had this kind of the talk, but then there was always an inflection point where we could use it to talk about the company's policy. So I did prep with people, and I encouraged them to be on the line with me because I thought it would make it feel more like it was theirs. And then I'll tell you, the most fun people, and I asked them if I could mention their names, and they said I could, were Charla and Tina at McDermott. They had such energy for their work and for doing security awareness and communications. It was really cool. I wished more people could have seen both that wonderful culture I talked about, and then also these 2 folks down at McDermott in Houston who were just so enthusiastic about their jobs. That was pretty cool.
I love that.
I think oh man, the sun is really coming in here. I'm sorry, I didn't realize how blinding we're getting here. Sun in Seattle.
And see, it's rainy here in Philadelphia.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Isn't it supposed to be raining there?
Yeah, it is, and it was, but it comes and goes. So, Daniel, it feels like we pretty much covered all the bases here. Anything else you want to say on as we close this thing down?
No, well, I say no, and then I start talking. I just,
Yeah.
I'm having so much fun. I just want to keep talking. But, I think Cybersecurity Awareness Month is a great opportunity, as I said earlier, to rally everyone around and get everyone recharged, and to focus on some of the great resources, because there's no lack of resources and information on cybersecurity, right? It's how do we, with the resources that are available, with the content that we're delivering to business partners, customers, employees, how do we cut through all the clutter and get to the content? And that is the challenge that we're faced with. And so Cybersecurity Awareness Month is really that opportunity to really celebrate some of the great resources, and also for us to stop and think, not only encouraging people to stop and think before clicking emails, but as content deliverers, to stop and think about how people are consuming this information and how are we changing it up to keep them engaged. And so I love that you invited me onto this platform to change up the way we deliver content. And I just want to encourage people to keep thinking and talking to each other about ways to make it better and to change it up and to use these great tools to deliver good content and not clutter.
Yeah. Amen. The worst thing we could do is bore people about cybersecurity, or scare them into their shells. I mean,
they're already confused about it and scared.
Yeah. Daniel, it's comments like that to just remind me how much of a pleasure it is to work with you. I think you do just a really great job of representing the aspirations of our profession. So thanks for being on here with me. This is a fun experiment for me. I know I want to do it again.
Yeah, me too.
It'll be hard. It'll be hard to. You're a very easy person to talk to, so we'll see if everybody is as easy. This has been great. I think what we realized is that we didn't turn comments on for this, so people couldn't comment. We'll get that sorted out. I'm really sorry if you're listening and you realize you wish you could comment and you can't. Our bad. We'll get that figured out next time. But Daniel, thanks a ton.
Hey, our relationship with MediaPro is strong, and we appreciate it at the National Cybersecurity Alliance. And I appreciate your all your efforts in this industry and profession. I appreciate it. You're a great colleague.
Thank you. You too. Hey, look at that. Neither one of us really gave a sales pitch either. I mean, you gave a sales pitch because you're not selling anything, but
I'm not selling anything. No. We gave it all away.
That's right. Okay, cool. With that, take care. We'll talk soon.
Thanks.
Okay. And I'm going to end this broadcast.